Sweet. Okay. So, anytime I ever really get a project going, and I've built enough pedals, as you can see, uh, these are almost as complex as really any given amplifier. I mean, really, when you think about how much circuitry is actually in this, this little guy. I mean, we've got all sorts of different electronics and stuff like that that aren't even they're digital, and you can look at the tiny little pins on those. So those are probably, and for a lot of people, are just as intimidating, if not more so, because sometimes you have to program these and put them on a EEPROM chip, programmer, and get into some program type stuff. So there's a lot of things to consider when you start doing these. But for example, like this is just a simple gate. When you look at this, it's not that bad. You're looking at maybe 25 resistors or something like that, a couple of caps, and a couple of different things here. But when you build these to get start, they get you an idea of routing. And what you'll do is you'll wire the ground to the hot and the hot to the ground, and you'll get all sorts of feedback and craziness, and you'll think, oh, I did it right, I followed the instructions. But the instructions sometimes are just they're Yahoo, and they're wrong, and you have to troubleshoot. And sometimes when you build one of these guys, you'll end up building one and it'll work, or it won't. And you'll look at the thing and you'll just say, oh, okay. And you do a little bit of process elimination. You do something with your tester, and you'll figure out a few little things. You don't need all of this oscilloscopes and all these different kind of gadgets. Truthfully, I haven't even used these. I bought them and I have not even used them yet. But they are going to come in handy, especially when I'm fixing this guy right there. But being laid out, any chef will tell you, organization will set you free. Keeping all of your parts in a very specific order and making sure that you're well organized. I mean, I've got probably enough parts to build a circuit or an amp or all that kind of stuff. And I just love this stuff. So keep yourself organized, get into it. But what I will recommend you to do is when you get a kit like this, okay, especially from Ceriatone, which they know what they're doing. They know how to package everything, very organized. Now, this did not come with any instructions, and again, as I said before, they probably just didn't want to include anything. So if they had to do an update, you could just download it. But the problem is I need a color printer, which I do not have because these are all color coded. So if I print it out in black and white, it's not going to do me any good. And I don't really want to have a computer sitting right here. I took a look at it for reference. I don't really having to have the desk space, as you can see. But at the same point, what the whole point of this is you want to lay yourself out in the order that you want to start the project, okay? So you want to get your turret boards there, but you don't even really want to worry about the turret boards just yet. What we're going to be doing is actually assembling the chassis first. If you're British, chassis. But either way, we got to figure out what that rod is for. I assume it's probably for the heaters, but we'll figure that out as we go. But this is the key. What I did in the past with a lot of these pedal builds is you'll go through the build of parts, build of materials, and then what you'll do before you start soldering things together and wondering what went wrong is you want to check off everything that you've got here across this to make sure that you've got all the parts, and then just put a little check mark next to all this kind of stuff. Now the next thing is when you start building this stuff, you want to kind of create a system like an X or an asterisk or something like that, to just give yourself a little bit of information. Like for example, this says offboard versus onboard, and then there's all sorts of different types of things. Now we've got even some handwritten stuff on here that has changed from what they are, and they are probably the corrections that I just mentioned. So if this was just printed out and they realized, oh, that printout is wrong, this is probably why they didn't want to include a layout. And most people, when they're buying from Ceriatone, they're probably just like, just send it to me all it is. Now, just full disclosure, I wanted to build this amplifier. I love building this stuff. It is very peaceful for me. It's very relaxing. And it's extremely liberating to know that I could build one of the greatest amplifiers ever devised myself. It's a lot of fun, and you get to learn. And once you understand this stuff, then you could start even building your own circuits, or You build a Marshall clone, you build a Fender clone, you see what this is, you build a Vox clone, you do all that kind of stuff. And it's exactly what Ken Fincher did when he learned electronics, and he came up with this. He blended a couple things that he liked from one thing and blended another thing that he liked from another thing. And he created this. And when you look at it, it's incredibly simple. When you think about, it's just a few parts. It's not that much more complicated than these guys. And I've built a dozen of these things. And some of them are delay, and some of them are reverb, multi-effects, some of them are gates. I don't know how it all really works, right now. People are like, oh, you're a genius. Like how to build. No, I'm just little following instructions and just using a soldering iron. And by the way, get yourself a good soldering iron. One with the temperature control makes all the difference in the world. And when you get solder, get yourself some of this kind of solder. It's going to be leaded solder. Don't breathe this stuff in. But this is, I don't even know what gauge this is. 24 or 245. I don't know what gauge it is, but it's really easy to work with. Get yourself some wick. You need some flux, so you can, do what you need to do with that, so you can hit the solder points better. Get some extra little parts. I got these on Amazon. Lots of Schottky diodes, rectifiers, tons of these little caps. And again, a lot of these things are going to be for guitar pedal builds, but I've got a ton of extra, resistors and transistors and friggin' everything you can possibly imagine, just in case I ever run into a situation where if I want to do a mod, I can actually, and which I did on the Soldano amp, I actually swapped out a couple of parts, and I was able to do that without, worrying about too much. And it's very inexpensive to do that, relatively anyways. But when you get into it, I mean, look, I've got all this stuff. I mean, I've got stupid amounts of parts. And I try to keep it as organized as possible so I can just grab the parts. But at the end of the day, think about it like this. This is all you have to do to create one of the best sounding amplifiers. So I encourage you to try. The only thing that's really dangerous are these guys connected to that guy. This and that could kill you. So that's the difference between building these when you get into it, because those, you can burn something out and you can damage things. And if you did build something like this, you might build it for $40. And if it doesn't work, it's $40. You can even do what I did. I screwed up this guy, which was a King of Tone pedal, and I wanted to screw around with it. And I look at that board. I mean, it's just nasty. It worked for about 5 minutes, and I had all these parts that I didn't want to, reuse, and I didn't care. So I rebought the whole damn thing. And I could probably steal some parts from this, but this is kind of just a good example of like, what went wrong. You can actually see I did the buttons upside down and put these right here. I mean, it's like this was a goof. It was a goof. And that's why it didn't work properly. And that's what you just learn from doing it. So, you build some of these. They cost you maybe $40-50 or something like that, even without the cage and all the stuff that you put them in. But you get the chance to learn, troubleshoot. When you get into this kind of stuff, it's not that much more complicated. But it's extremely rewarding when you start building these type of things. So I highly encourage you to start building your own amplifiers. You just have to worry about currents and protecting yourself. And I think, where's my tool? This guy right here. There's a video that I'll link in the description. It's part of it, but this right here, this is so you can actually clip one end on the chassis right here on the ground, because obviously this is bare metal. But then you'll touch a certain point of the resistor that will basically give it a little spark, but it will discharge any of the capacitors that will actually cause lethal damage. So you need to have one of those. Later on, you'll need to get something like this, which is a adapter for the tube that you plug into that. That's so you can use a biasing. To do biasing properly, you're going to need a second multimeter and another multimeter to do the testing. And then this guy right here, I was smart enough to get one of these. This is one for EL84s, which is what this is made for. So I've got pretty much a lot of the parts. This is not something that you should expect to do right off the cuff, but that's why I say get into it, enjoy it, and really be excited about it, because it may take you 2-3 months to build this, but you got to understand this amplifier. The versions of these, there's only 600 made, and they're going for like $100 grand now. maybe 50, I don't know, but still $50,000. I mean, some people can buy Porsches for that. And this is an amplifier sitting here with a kit's value of about $1,200. Maybe a little more, a little less where you are, but essentially this is going to be doing exactly the same thing. It's the same recipe, because when it comes all down to it, it comes down to caps and resistors, and it's just a recipe. That's all it is. And so we're going to build something absolutely fantastic. And again, I am really, really impressed with Ceratone's organization of parts, all of this stuff. I didn't get this with the other amplifier. They gave me some random cable, just links and stuff like that. And you can see I've got tons of extra cable. Again, you can buy that. This is the wire I used for the heaters on the Soldano. I've got testers for caps, just stuff. I just love this stuff. But my point is get yourself organized. If you get into it, this is point to point, so this is totally new for me. I've never done this before. The other ones are pretty much really basic. Underneath these little shells, matter of fact, you can see, I think on here, they tell you where to place things. They tell you the orientation. They tell you what to put under there. You can see there's some writing underneath them. They tell you exactly what you're going to do. And a lot of these things, the reason why buying the kits already, pre-packaged and stuff like that, is they've done a lot of the hard work for you. Like even on building these kits like stompbox.com and pedalboard PCB, the trick with those is a lot of people complain. It's like, well, okay, I need this part, and they don't sell these particular things. So then you got to go on Google and you says, well, what's a appropriate diode replacement for these type of things, because they don't make those. So you'll go to Mauser and you'll go to all sorts of different places. You'll learn all these terms. Trust me, I know it's very intimidating, but when you get into this stuff, you'll get into it hardcore. I believe you would. You'll be addicted. But even just the last little thing, you can see these little stamped out little things just to make it authentic, to make it look like the original type of designs. The only thing is they used to stamp the name of a girl on the amplifier. That was the way he did his serial numbers. He never did actual serial numbers on that. So, but I'll also link a video to Kent Fisher's interview talking about how he actually built these particular amplifiers, and we're going to have a lot of fun building this. So anyways, that's my intro to getting started. And as I have little tips and tricks going forward, I will bring them up to you. And hopefully you can learn some very useful stuff to get you started. And let's rock on.